I apologize about that. Right in the middle of votes and another hearing has been interesting. Anyways, looking for my opening statement. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the third and final fiscal year 2026 budget hearing for the Legislative Branch Appropriations Subcommittee. Today, we have us with Chief, is it Manger? Chief, I know we've talked multiple times. Thank you. I'll be referring to you as Chief because that's more fitting to your title. So appreciate it so much for you being here. I understand that this is probably your last hearing with us. And so anyways, we sure appreciate you being here. We have Jennifer Hemingway, the Senate Sergeant at Arms. Thank you. Both of you guys do phenomenal work. Both agencies work tirelessly to protect members of Congress and our staff, and almost 8 million visitors to the Capitol campus each and every year. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the men and women at the United States Capitol and the Sergeant of Arms for the work they do to keep us safe. The commitment enables us to do our job on behalf of our constituents, and I mean that sincerely. We couldn't do it without you guys. It was never more evident than when you guys are truly willing to jump in front of a bullet for us and make sure we get home when, honestly, our family loves us no more or no less than your families do. But it's a service that you guys have decided to do, and I don't take that for granted ever. So thank you guys, and thank you for the ones that you had the privilege of serving with. Now I'd like to mention at our first two hearings this year, we faced we're faced with a budget environment that will require difficult and important decisions on how we move forward in the coming fiscal year. While we do that, we can't forget that we need to support our agencies and their missions requirements. It's important that every legislative branch agency is responsible and good stewards of the resources and makes wise choices about priorities. This fiscal year, the Senate Armed Services is requesting $357.4 million, an increase of $46.6 million, which is above the FY25 enacted level. This request includes funding for innovations to enhance the Senate's physical and cybersecurity, state office operations, and member protection. It also includes additional FTEs to support operations across the agency. The United States Capitol Police budget request is $967.8 million, an increase of $161.3 million, or a 20% increase over the funding level provided in the full year CR. The funding level would support continued growth in sworn and civilian staff levels and provide an increase of $52.6 million for general expenses. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. I look forward to the productive discussion and understand your agency's priorities for the upcoming year. Now I'd like to turn to the ranking member, Senator Heinrich, and thank you so much for your patience, sir.
No problem. Thank you, Chairman. I want to begin today by just expressing how disappointed I am in President Trump's removal of Dr. Hayden, our Librarian of Congress. As I said when she appeared before us last week, Dr. Hayden has served the American people with distinction, working to bring literacy to every single American. Her removal by the President is both unwarranted and, in my view, improper. Now, turning to today's witnesses, I look forward to hearing from Chief Manger and Mrs. Hemingway. Thank you both for being here today, and thank you to the dedicated professionals at your agencies who provide safety and security to the Senate every day as we carry out our constitutional responsibilities. It is through the dedication of your teams that the American people can visit the U.S. Capitol and witness their government in action. Chief Manger, I want to thank you for your, 46 years of service? 46 years of service as you prepare to retire from your current position as Chief of the United States Capitol Police. You served as Chief of Police during a difficult time and focused your efforts on the challenges that the department faced. The Senate is grateful for your service and that of all the Capitol Police. Now, I understand the department is requesting $967 million, an increase of $161 million over fiscal year 2025 enacted levels. And this request includes funding for salaries, general expenses, and reimbursements to state and local governments for law enforcement functions. As you mentioned in your written testimony, it is a substantial request, and we look forward to working with your team to prioritize funding that is critical to the execution of the department's mission and critical to keeping our officers safe. I look forward to hearing more about your fiscal 26 budget request. And Ms. Hemingway, as our Sergeant at Arms, you play a critical role as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the Senate. I would like to thank you for this work, the work that you and your team do to support this institution. Your request is $357 million for FY26, a 15% increase over 25 enacted levels. I understand this funding will enable the Sergeant at Arms to continue its efforts to increase security, modernize IT systems, and enhance interagency coordination. And I look forward to hearing more about your vision for the office of the Sergeant at Arms and Doorkeeper. Again, thanks to you both for being here today, and I'm looking forward to this hearing.
I'd like to thank Senator Rounds and Senator Murray for being here. At this time, we'll turn to our witnesses for their opening statements. Please be as precise to 5 minutes as possible. Ms. Hemingway, I'll ask you to start.
Chairman Mullen, Ranking Member Heinrich, Senator Rounds, Vice Chair Murray, and members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of the Sergeant at Arms fiscal year 2026 budget request. The Sergeant at Arms and Doorkeeper serves the Senate as the Chief Law Enforcement and Protocol Officer and is responsible for the Senate's physical security, cybersecurity, emergency preparedness, and several support functions. Security is a significant piece of our day-to-day mission. In calendar year 2024, we addressed more than 5,700 requests for law enforcement assistance, a 35% increase over the prior year. Using authority and monies provided by this committee, we fund security equipment, monitoring services, and physical security improvements for senators' homes. We offer a data removal tool to make it more difficult for bad actors to find specifics about senators on the internet. Our efforts extend beyond D.C. to provide security enhancements and upgrades for more than 460 state offices. Working with the Federal Protective Service, we have conducted 156 assessments and enrolled 56 senators in our temporary armed guard service program. The SAA provides other services too. We spend $1.85 million monthly on rent for state office space. 99% of Senate offices and committees participate in employee assistance and well-being services, and this was last year's statistic, to enhance staff personal and effectiveness. Senate offices and committees ordered more than 19,000 printed materials and 8,700 flags from our printing and graphics team. Accomplishing our mission under a continuing resolution has required some belt-tightening. To prioritize funding for projects and improvements that benefit our Senate customers, I instituted a selective hiring freeze, will not provide merit raises or a cost of living increase, and canceled a $4 million contract that was internal to the Sergeant at Arms for human capital management. For fiscal year 2026, as both of you mentioned, we seek a $357 million increase, a $47 million increase over our current funding. Much of this increase was also proposed in fiscal year 2025. Among our requests is a $5 million increase for the Office of Security, Emergency Preparedness, and Continuity. Because of increasing confrontations, disruptive visitors, and hundreds of potential threats against senators, I believe this funding is necessary for the safety and security of senators, staff, and visitors to our state offices. In addition, we asked this committee to provide $10.5 million in no-year funds. $5.5 million would establish a state office operations fund. This fund would allow us to pay rent if regular appropriations are not available. This fund could also be used to directly support leasehold improvements in federal buildings that are often delayed due to GSA's resource approach. This fund would be similar to the Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery Fund established by this committee in the Legislative Branch Appropriations Act of 2022. Our remaining requests are detailed in my written testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight some of the key pieces of our proposal. I believe this budget will allow us to meet the security and operational needs of the Senate and welcome your questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Chairman Mullen, Ranking Member Heinrich, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to present the United States Capitol Police budget request for FY 2026. Over the past 4 years, the USCP has experienced tremendous growth. Since 2021, there have been significant changes to increase the department's staffing levels, enhance our security posture, and modernize technology. So I need to acknowledge at the outset that the department's 2026 budget request is substantial. It's close to $1 billion. I recognize there are other police departments of a similar size whose budgets are not as large as ours, but we are not an ordinary law enforcement agency. In fact, our mission incorporates elements similar to the FBI, the United States Secret Service, and the Federal Protection Services. Moreover, while the officers that you see around our campus represent a large portion of the department's workforce, the full scope of our duties far exceeds that of officers and agents stationed at physical posts. Much of the work performed by the department staff, both sworn and civilian, goes well beyond Capitol grounds. Significantly, many of the mission requirements simply did not exist 4 years ago. I cannot sufficiently emphasize that point enough. Following nearly 20 after-action reports and 140 total recommendations, the department's mission expanded exponentially and continues to expand. The department had to respond to and implement recommendations that spanned the gamut in complexity, from equipping every officer with riot gear to developing department-wide policies to expanding operational planning and strengthen the department's training functions. As a result of these recommendations, the department has taken on new responsibilities and created new divisions and teams that did not previously exist. Member security concerns and major operational planning have driven the need for additional resources and staffing. The increased threat climate is perhaps one of the biggest drivers of the department's continuing need for additional resources. This past year alone, we saw threats against members increase to a staggering 9,400 in 1 year. The current threat environment has resulted in the continuation of sunset protection details and the addition of short-term threat-based details. It's resulted in increased requests from member escorts and security monitoring at regional airports, additional technical surveillance countermeasure inspections, which have increased by nearly 400% since 2021, member residential security assessments, which have almost doubled since 2021, and requests for law enforcement coordination assessments, which has increased by 159% since FY 2022. The department created a new standalone Intelligence Services Bureau, which did not exist 4 years ago. Our reorganization also created an Office of Standards and Training Operations, which allows the department to centralize its training, policy development, and inspections functions. All of these were recommendations issued by the Inspector General. The Protective Intelligence Operations Center is a state-of-the-art fusion center for the intake and coordination of members' threats, related investigations, and newly established residential security program. Again, another program that didn't exist 4 years ago. None of these components existed 4 years ago. They're all new, and they all are must-haves in our current threat environment. The department's FY 26 budget request builds upon the accomplishments achieved over the past 4 years. It includes, as you said, $687 million to fund salaries and benefits, $255 million to fund general expenses, and $25 million in multi-year funding to support the continuation of the department's mutual aid program. I can't stress strongly enough that the department's protection responsibilities do not end at the Capitol campus's borders. The department is statutorily entrusted with nationwide protective responsibilities of members, requirements that it cannot undertake without the support and resources of our partner law enforcement agencies and that mutual aid funding. The department expects to reach approximately 2,530 sworn personnel by the end of FY 2026. While this represents an increase in our staffing levels, the department needs to continue efforts to balance its workload specifically between the uniformed operations and the protective and intelligence operations. By the end of FY 2027, I feel confident that the department will reach our target sworn staffing levels. The department is tasked with ensuring that members, the Capitol complex, staff, and visitors remain safe and secure, and must do so on a campus that is entirely open and accessible to all. There is no other federal government office building with a comparable public access policy. I want to sincerely thank the members of the committee for your trust and support these past 4 years. It's through our joint partnership that the department has achieved such a transformational change. Thank you for the opportunity to appear here before you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you for you both, and thanks for the testimony. I will skip my question for now and go to Ranking Member Heinrich.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, one of the things I want to ask you about is talk a little bit about the Intelligence Services Bureau and how the posture there has changed over the course of the last few years.
When 4 years ago, one of the biggest failures in January 6th was our intelligence failure. And we have gone from an agency that consumed intelligence. The FBI would inform us of things, and DHS. We are now a major player in the intelligence community in this region. We have folks assigned to different task forces, and we have folks working directly with the FBI and DHS. And we not only still consume intelligence, but we gather intelligence, we analyze the intelligence, we operationalize that intelligence. It allows us to do better operational planning for things that occur on our campus. And most importantly, we disseminate that intelligence. We disseminate it to our own folks, and we share it with other agencies in the intelligence community.
As you mentioned in your testimony, there have been just very significant increases in the number of threats to senators and members of Congress. I think you said in your testimony that there were more than 9,400 incidents in 2024. Just talk a little bit generally about how Capitol Police has responded to that and what the increase in protection response looks like under the current threat environment.
So one of the biggest challenges was to keep up with that caseload. For some period of time after I got here, we had the same number of agents that were investigating the threats, and yet the number of threats had tripled, quadrupled. And so we had to add, and we continue to add folks in our investigations division. And not only do I think they do a good job at investigating those cases, but where we were still, I think, falling short of the mark was in terms of our being responsive back to the reporting parties. The good news is that really through the efforts of the Sergeant at Arms, along with the Capitol Police, we have gotten members to report everything, and this is good. But it's now up to us to make sure that we're responsive and that we get back to the reporting parties and let them know what progress we've made in the investigation, what we found out, those kinds of things. And we, for a long time, have fallen short on that. We have our Protection Investigative Intelligence Operations Center up and running 24/7 now, and that Operations Center will go a long way in making sure that not only are threats acted on immediately and that get the appropriate attention, but that we are better at getting back to members with the information that we're able to gather through those investigations.
I've seen firsthand the shift from sort of a one-way communication to more of a partnership. So I think on behalf of a lot of members, we appreciate that very much. I understand you only have a few weeks left before your retirement. Of all the changes that you've implemented in the department, which ones do you think had the greatest impact on moving the needle, improving security?
I think getting the appropriate staff together. I mean, if you look at the, and I read every single one of the after-action reports that in 2021, many of them pointed out that the Capitol Police were woefully understaffed and had been historically understaffed. Getting the staffing up to where it should be so that we can have the number of posts that we really need to have, so we have enough screening entrances, to handle the folks that come here to work, come here to visit. To be able to respond quickly, and one of the things I'm most proud of is our rapid response team, where when there's a disruption anywhere on this campus, there is a quick response by Capitol Police, and it's an effective response. And so I think that we're ready for anything, whereas before it was always, well, we've got a problem here, let's find a few people that we can pull off of a post to respond. Right. We are light years ahead of that with our operational planning now, and I think that this campus is much safer because of it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Ms. Hemingway, I'd like to start with you. You know, when we start looking at the budget, obviously there's a lot of concerns because everybody's got to have a haircut at this point. It's hard to find anything that we can increase because we have a $37 trillion deficit and growing. At the same time, we've got to make sure that those that are visiting the Capitol and those that work here are also safe along the ways. And so we all have different, things we've got to look at. Talking about safety, I recently had an opportunity to speak with your Deputy Jason Bell, and I brought up some serious security concerns to which I see are just major holes. And so before I really get into the budget questions, I want to know if you believe we should have like a complete wholesale review of the Senate security posture. And if you do, if you'd commit working with me and working with others on actually evaluating not just what we've always done, but what we can do different.
Yes, Senator, I look forward to partnering with you in that effort. I think 4 years after January 6th and additional resources, it is an appropriate time to take a look at our campus security posture, see what additional vulnerabilities we need to address, and perhaps changes that we need to make to our visitor management system in order to keep senators, staff, and our visitors who are here in the buildings safe.
Right. And one concern, there's multiple concerns, and one I'll just air out here that I have is, during votes, the plaza is wide open. And there's not a more vulnerable time than when members are getting out of their vehicles, walking to their cars. We were told that at one time that the plaza would be closed when the votes were called. The problem is you can go out there right now when the vote's called and the plaza's not closed. People are all over it. People are going through with baby strollers, riding their bikes across with backpacks, carrying backpacks, carrying suitcases, and we understand what can easily be concealed in those. And I want the American people to have access to their capital as much as anyone. But at the same time, we know there's a huge threat, especially a growing threat on public figures that are in public offices. And I think there needs to be a serious look at what we do at the plaza during votes, regardless if the House or the Senate's open, because you can't just close half of it because people continue to walk and continue to ride bikes. And I think that'd be one start. But there's other issues that I'd like to discuss too, because as I said, it's not just protecting us, but it's also protecting those that are in uniform and those that are out of uniform. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for that. Can you explain to us the demand for personal offices and committees for additional funding for their technology needs?
Yes, thank you for the question. So this year we are asking for an additional $3.2 million increase for the Economic Allocation Fund. The Economic Allocation Fund provides money to Senate offices and committees at the beginning of each senator's term or the start of a committee. Leadership and the institutional offices also receive that same funding at the start of their term. If you take a look back to 6 years and think about when a senator may have started, at that point, a laptop cost $600. That same laptop today costs on average $1,500. We now have staff and senators who are increasingly reliant on technology in order to do their work, and that trend will only continue. Coming out of COVID, many of us carry multiple devices. We now have a desktop, we have a laptop, we have a tablet, and we may have multiple phones. So all of that taken together has led to an increase in demand combined with increased prices, and this increase will help ensure that Senate offices can have the equipment that they need and require.
Thank you. And Ms. Hemingway, I do realize that the Senate continues to ask your offices to do more and more and take on more and more responsibilities. with that being said, with the tough budget year, can you kind of send me your priorities? What are the
Yes.
must-dos?
Yes, my top three priorities are the $5 million increase that we request for our Office of Security and Emergency Preparedness, and that will respond directly to increased threats against members. Last year, it was an election year, but we saw an 83% increase in threats against members of Congress and a 38% increase in directions of interest. My second priority is the Economic Allocation Fund that we just discussed, along with a $2 million increase for the Sergeant at Arms to buy Microsoft Enterprise licenses. Right now, using available funds, we have bought those licenses for Senate offices this year. We'd like the funding in order to continue. My third priority is the $5.5 million State Office Operations Fund that I discussed. It would allow us to pay rents if regular appropriations were not available, and also to ensure that we can more quickly accomplish leasehold improvements to Senate state offices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Murray?
Thank you very much, Chair Mullen. Senator Heinrich, look forward to working with both of you on this committee. And thank you to both of our witnesses today. And I especially want to thank your staffs. They are dedicated and hardworking public servants. They keep this place humming, and they protect everyone who works in and visits the Capitol. So I want to thank both of you and all your staffs. We really rely on the tireless public service of men and women who do extraordinary jobs under increasingly difficult circumstances, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, weekends and holidays throughout the year. So thank you to all of them as well, particularly the men and women in uniform who guard our doors and patrol the complex and keep us safe. I look forward to talking with you about what we can do to make sure that we're providing the necessary resources to allow them to keep doing that job. Chief Manger, I also want to acknowledge your retirement and thank you for your tremendous service. You took over as chief in a very dark and difficult moment following the horrific attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Thank you for answering the call and taking on that responsibility. And I do want you to know I am going to keep pushing for us to finally hang the plaque that honors all the officers who protected the Capitol on that day. We know the plaque was made. We know it is here in the Capitol somewhere. And I have yet to see one good reason why the Speaker hasn't put it up yet. So I want you to know I'm going to keep pressing till we get that done. But thank you especially for your service. And finally, before I turn to my questions, I do want to mention, as Senator Heinrich did, about the outrageous firing of Carla Hayden in the Library of Congress, who sat before this very subcommittee just last week. She served honorably, she served capably, she made sure our nation's history was accessible and engaging, and that all of our communities had their stories told and heard. And that abrupt firing without cause, without notice to Congress is not only an affront to this incredible public service, but it really is an affront to the independence of this Congress. So I'm outraged. I hope our Republican colleagues join us in that. Chief Manger, I want to ask you to give us an update on the staffing within the Dignitary Protection Division. These are highly trained personnel. They serve in critical and increasingly difficult roles. In your budget request, you are requesting additional protection agencies. How are you hiring the protective personnel and procuring the resources to support the division and meet your mission?
It's funny when Senator Mullen asked the Sergeant at Arms about the top priorities. Dignitary protection is number one for us in terms of the need and a priority in our budget. We are asking for, again, the ability to hire 288 new positions. This allows us to continue the flow into the agency and the opportunity for people who want to go from Uniformed Services Division to Dignitary Protection without diminishing the uniformed officers' ability to continue to do their job. So, that is the first way we do it. We are also bringing folks in directly to become DPD agents and hiring them directly and training them. So we've got, and we're allowing for lateral hires as well. Okay. So these are strategies that we did not use before, and it's helping us make progress. But we've got to get the number up to Right now, we believe 530 DPD agents is what needed. And you touched on it, I mean, in terms of the hours that these individuals have to work. We've got to get the staffing up so that we're not making people work double shifts and canceling days off and all that sort of thing. And it's the DPD agents who are the ones that are constantly bumping up against the maximum allowable pay rate. And so get the staffing up, we'll solve that problem.
Yeah, and you and I have talked before about the problem of retaining sworn law enforcement personnel. These are really demanding, high-stress jobs, and in recent years, we've authorized retention bonuses and student loan repayment programs. Is there any data in it if that's been effective?
Well, I can just tell you that our attrition rates are lower than they were before we had those. So I think that's evidence. And just anecdotally, you talk to a lot of cops, and that's keeping them here when especially at a critical time for some of these folks that would be at a time in their career where, well, I'm either going to stay. If I keep staying, then I'm just invested not to stay through the end. Versus, or there are other opportunities somewhere else. So I think it's a very effective way to keep people here, and I know that this year we're going to hopefully be able to offer some retention bonus, but it's not going to be near what we've offered in the years past.
Okay, thank you. My time is out. I do have additional questions I'd like to submit for the record. Thank you.
Just for a reminder, because the librarian has been brought up twice here, I really wasn't want to get into that in this hearing, but for the history of understanding the librarian and how this came about to begin with, if we go back to when the conception of the librarian was formed by Thomas Jefferson in 1902, it was a lifetime appointment. It was a lifetime appointment until President Obama changed it in 2015 and made the librarian where it was at the service and at the will of the president. There was no objection by this side at that time when that was taken care of, so that it was well within the president's authority to be able to let go the librarian. There is no separation of powers because that appointment for the librarian has always been appointed by the President of the United States. So just for historical purposes, I didn't want to get into it, but it's been brought up twice. I think that's an important piece of information that's being left out here. Chief, you just said that your objection is to hire, part of your reason for asking for the increase is to hire 288 new officers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your recruiting classes are full month after month. Is that correct?
They are, yes.
Okay, so you're not having a recruiting issue, right?
We are not.
And really, if you break down the 288, for 288 employees, you have 996 roughly overtime hours, actually over 996,000 actually overtime hours that you paid out last year at a tune of 84 point, let's just round a number, $84.3 million. Just quick math. If you did 288 employees and you times it by 52, which they don't work 52 weeks a year, but just times it by 52, and you give them 50 hours a week, that just comes up to 748,000 hours right there. So for not having a recruiting issue, then we have, all your classes are full. We can get there underneath the current budget you have right now, put an additional 288 people on the force. They still are able to get overtime at a tune of 50 hours a week. That's including with your officers you have today. Because your officers you have today, if you take that and you divide it up, they average right at 50 hours a week. 40.8 hours is actually, and I know this is different from protective service guys that are doing protective work versus the uniform. But my point is, if we look at restructuring it, rather than just asking for us to throw more money at it, it's saving the taxpayer dollars. But we can't do it because your recruiting classes are completely full. And we're only able to go through the recruiting classes. You have two places that you put these things, that you put your recruits through, right?
Fletzy and Shelton, Fletzy and Georgia, and then Shelton.
And we're limited on numbers there. Have we looked at having an additional place? Because obviously, like I said, you're not having a recruiting number, your recruiting issue because your classes are full. So we can't ever get to the 288 if we're at maximum capacity right now. So what's our option?
One of the findings in a recent training needs assessment that we completed is that the facilities are are the choke point for us.
Right, but I mean, we looked at getting a different facility, a different place to send our recruits to.
Yeah, well, we could look at that. I mean, FLETC has just historically been, the
Historically,
Federal Law Enforcement
yeah.
Training Center is where we train all federal law enforcement
But if they're
officers.
not able to meet the need, then the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. They're not able to meet the need, and they're not able to recruit fast enough. We have to change, because instead you're paying out 996,000 hours of overtime, which is a tune of $84+ million, and you could easily get the other 288 officers in place with the budget you have right now by just cutting down people's overtime, which would also help their quality of life, because they're going to be able to be home a little bit more, at the same time still get the overtime at 50 hours a week. And so there's math here that actually works, but we can't do it unless you're willing to change and look outside what we've always done.
Well, the change that I'm dealing with is the growing caseload. I mean, this is not a static workload that doesn't change every year. It is increasing
The
every
growing
year.
caseload, you'd need 288 additional officers, right?
And we're trying to make up for deficits that continue,
But you
especially in the
can't, but you can't
dignitary
get there. That's
protection.
what I'm getting at. If your recruiting classes are 100% full, you'll never be able to get there unless we look at a different place to start putting these recruits through, a different class.
I understand what you're saying, but we are making progress in terms of getting ahead of attrition every year with the 288 people that we're putting through.
By what numbers?
Typically, our attrition numbers, and I can get them to you, are around usually 130, 140 people who leave, so that we're coming out, just estimating, we're coming out at least 100 officers ahead each
So
year.
at that rate, if you kept the current load and your current risk assessment stays, it'd still take you 3 years to get hired up.
I estimate that by the end of FY '27, we would
Well,
be
you
close.
can't do it if your recruiting classes are full and your attrition rate's at 134 and you're bringing in 220, I thought 220 some new recruits every year. You're less than 100 and you need 288. Just simple math there says it's going to take over 3 years. In fact, it's going to take 3.5 years.
Well, we are making progress every year in terms of getting closer to the
But why haven't we looked at
staffing.
getting in new places in the recruits, is what I'm getting at. Just because this is what, it's like I'm going in circles here. I don't understand why we're not trying to find new places to put the recruits through so we can have a higher amount hired each year. If we need 288 today, then what are we going to need in 3 years from now? You're never going to get caught up with that.
If there is some place that will give us the certificate, that allows us to certify these police officers as federal law enforcement officers, another facility, I'm happy to look at it.
I'm good with it too, and I think we can help you find one. We just need to start looking. I yield.
Mr. Chairman, I would be very happy to work with you, and we just happen to have a Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Artesia, New Mexico, that we would love to make sure meets the requirements of the U.S. Capitol Police.
Honestly, let's look at it. I mean,
absolutely.
if we want to take a
I'm
a
not
field
saying-
hearing there, let's go.
I'm not saying that in
Yeah.
jest. They do great work. I know that
If we had
there's-
one in Oklahoma, I'd offer it too, by the way.
There's some very specific requirements for the Capitol Police, and I'm not sure if we currently meet all of those, but we'd be happy to work on it. So, Ms. Hemingway, you serve on the Capitol Police Board that provides oversight to the U.S. Capitol Police. It's also responsible for selecting the next chief. What's the status of that selection process? And just sort of bring us up to date and talk about the timeline a little bit.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So following Chief Manger's announced retirement effective May 29th, the Capitol Police Board engaged with the Police Executive Research Forum to assist in a competitive search. We are in the middle of actively interviewing a well-qualified pool of applicants. We are on track to make a decision as a board by the end of this month, and provided we do not deviate from that timeline, I look forward to introducing you to the new Chief of Police in June.
Great. Chief, in your view, what should be the primary focus in the first month of the incoming chief's tenure?
Well, I think that depending on where they come from, whether it's an internal candidate or external, but certainly any external candidate, if there's two big challenges in this job. One, of course, you have to know how to run a large police organization. And some of us came in with that ability. But then you have to learn Capitol Hill and how to
the
navigate.
uniqueness of this
Yes.
particular
And-
environment.
And that is like nothing else. And so to make sure that you have the staff in place and, you know, the right guidance to make sure that you're navigating Capitol Hill in an effective way so that you can be effective on day one when you get in here. And that is what a new chief should focus on if they don't have that experience already.
The Sergeant at Arms has also increased its focus on member protection, as you mentioned, including security concerns for our families and staff. In your testimony, you referred to more than 5,700 requests in 2024 for security travel and public events. In broad terms, what has the Sergeant at Arms done to increase its focus on member protection, both here in DC, but also back in people's home districts and home states?
Both here in DC and in home states, we now offer, thanks to this committee, the Residential Security System Program. We have 41 senators who are actively participating in this program, where we are able to provide a security assessment, work with the senator on recommendations, and once those recommendations are agreed to, we cover the cost of implementation, monitoring, and maintenance. I'm very proud of that accomplishment that we've made over the past few years, including with this committee's support. With respect to law enforcement coordination to help address the threats, we encourage senators to let us know about events that are upcoming. We coordinate and do an intelligence threat assessment, and based on that assessment, we recommend a level of law enforcement support. Thanks to this committee, again, Capitol Police has money to reimburse state and local agencies for mutual aid law enforcement support. If law enforcement support is not appropriate, we have several training classes and offer tips and coordinate with the staff to make sure that they are well prepared to support senators. In our state offices, we have an alert media tool, which state offices, senators, and spouses can use to maintain situational awareness about events near them. We also harden state offices, including ballistic glass and secure reception rooms. We put security equipment in those places, and part of this budget does include funding for a life cycle replacement of that equipment. So those are just a few highlights that I would offer to you.
Great. No, thank you. And thank you, Chairman. I'm going to offer the rest of my questions for the record today, but I very much appreciate the hearing.
Thank you. Chief, something was brought to my attention. We're talking about budgets and we're looking at ways to either increase or save money. What is OEI
Office of Equity and Inclusion.
and the purpose?
The purpose in the Capitol Police is it's designed to promote a culture of teamwork and shared commitment to our mission. Every member of the Capitol Police, I want them to feel like they are part of the team and committed to our mission. And our OEI reports directly to me because I think that what they do is that important, and it's less than 1% of our budget.
It's a tune of $1 million for 9 people is how much it costs. $1
Yes,
million.
Yeah, some of those are contractors and.
You have 9 personnel, 4 civilian, and 5 contractors.
Right.
That's a hefty payroll for 9 people.
Yeah, and we can certainly look at ways to pare some of the expenses down if.
What does your
if
average
need be.
officer make a year?
Well, the starting salary is, right after you're out of the academy, is about mid-80s.
Mid-80s? So
Yes.
you
And
could,
but the average officer is probably making in the probably just over 6 figures.
okay, so you could hire at least 10 new officers. Now, once again, obviously, you're not having a recruiting issue, but I'm having a hard time because OEI sounds a lot like DEI. And it's on when you literally go onto your front website, it's literally there. And in fact, recently, they're having a fair, which looked like it was a fair for grade schoolers. And I was going to put a stencil up and show it because it was actually, I mean, they're talking about having rifle tickets and giving away prizes, and they're going to have snacks for everybody. And I'm going, really? I have a hard time justifying that.
Well, we've got, if you look at
And
the
it talks about
programs
where
that-
everybody feels comfortable going to, and it talks about talking about their diversity. And then it also has a chart on there, and it shows how many officers are white and the ethnic groups that are there, but it specifically shows white officers. And I go, really? This is what we need in the workplace? Because that's called division, because if we're trying to hire the best and brightest based on merit, then why would that chart even need to be in the OEI?
Well, I will tell you that all over this country, people in every community want to know if their police department is reflecting the diversity and the experience of their community.
But also, everybody here wants to be safe, and that's why we want to hire based on merit.
That's number one. And if you heard what I said before, I mean, this team is designed to promote a culture of teamwork where everybody feels like they are part of the team.
That's not
and
what
that's
the-
important to me.
that's not what
and
the
if you have an
website-
organization
that's
as
not what
large
the
as mine,
website says,
you want people
Chief.
to have.
Read the website.
I
It's
have
not
read
what
the
that
website.
says.
They do a lot
It
of
does
other
not
things.
say that. What you're describing, it does not say. I don't want to get in a tit for tat for you, but if you want to get in an argument about it, we can. This is a good way to make
I'm
sure.
not arguing with you.
Well,
I'm telling
are,
you what the
to some
purpose of
degree.
this. You asked me what
Then
the
why
purpose of
doesn't
the
it say
team
that on the
was.
website? Because it doesn't. There's nowhere on that website that it says anything that you're saying. So you can tell me what it may supposed to be. I can tell you what the website is saying. So which one is it?
It's what I tell you. It's
Well,
that's
then the-
because
then the
that's what I
website- then the
that's the
website's dead
direction
wrong.
I've given that team.
Well, then you're not looking over it very well because they're spending $1 million for 9 people, and you don't even know what the website says.
I do know
And
what the website
and their
says.
job and their fare that they have that they're going to have for whatever it is, it doesn't say that. It says come to make sure everybody feels comfortable and included. And then once again, it breaks down every race. I believe you're pretty diversified. I get along with your officers, love your officers. I think they're awesome. Get along with every one of them. I go by, there's not a single time that I don't go by and I shake their hands and tell them thank you, and I joke and kid with them. And I don't see there's a diversity issue, but OEI is making it an issue.
That is not true.
Then why would they have a chart that showed every ethnic group there? And then it talks about diversity. And it talks about what their goal is of
when
how
we
many
talk
more
about
diversity you
diversity,
want
it's
to
the
get to.
diversity of experience that brought everybody to be on Team USCP.
When you read your website, it doesn't talk about that because it talks about diversity goals. And your diversity goals are based on race. So once again, Chief, you're not accurate.
I don't believe that's the case.
Okay, well, I can go back and I can quote it because it talks about diversity on female officers. It talks about diversity on different races. And it talks about what your goals are to get there. So it does. And I don't, if that's what you're at, then just own it.
Well,
don't
it's
sit there and
not.
say
It's not. We do not have quotas. We do not. Our diversity efforts are not. Oh, let's hire this kind of person, not that kind of person.
Well,
that is not the case.
It says that you're wanting to increase, which I don't care. If everybody's on merit base, hire the best people. So I don't care about it. I'm
doing
not trying to get in a tit for tat for it. But it does say in there that you're trying to diversify the force to 30% females, which don't care. It doesn't bother me. But
That's a national program called 30 for 30, where there's an effort to increase the number of women in
So it
policing.
is a quota.
No, it's not a quota. No. I mean, it's a goal. It's not a quota for us.
Okay. We have a lot of work to do. I want to make sure that everybody here at the Capitol is safe. I want to make sure that everybody that comes and visits us and everybody that comes here to work goes home to their families, and that's including all the officers. That's my number one goal. At the same time, I want to be a good steward of the dollars we're spending and make sure they're going to that goal. And I want to look at the way we do things. Just because we do things a certain way and we've done it for 10 years doesn't mean we can't get better at it. My goal as a chair is to do that. And we can do that through, one, if we're financing a program, I want to make sure it's a program that's actually being effective in every way possible, every way possible. So I look forward to working with you, Chief. I do appreciate your service. We don't always agree on every issue, but where you've taken the department in a few short years is commendable. I think there's a lot more changes that need to be happen, or that needs to happen, but you have done a pretty good job walking into a very difficult situation. So thank you. Unless the ranking member has anything else to say, I'll close the committee.
I just want to thank you both. I've seen measurable improvements to both of your organizations, and that is not lost on me, and I think it's not lost on most of the members. And please be sure that your workforces understand how much we appreciate them.
This concludes the Legislative Branch Appropriations Subcommittee hearing regarding fiscal year 2026 funding for the Sergeant of Arms, the United States Capitol Police. Thank you, Mr. Hemingway, and thank you, Chief, for testifying today. We appreciate the information you provide and look forward to working with each of your agencies as we continue to evaluate the security needs of Congress. The hearing record will be open for 7 days, allowing members to submit statements and/or questions for the record, which would be sent to the subcommittee for close of business on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. The subcommittee stands adjourned. And I don't have a gavel, so.